Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is an action horror film from the USA, English language, released in the year 2016, directed by John Suits, and this film is called Pandemic. So Pandemic is set in a world that has been ravaged by a zombie virus. This zombie virus comes in 5 stages. Level 1 is where they can still think for themselves and they can be cured, and a level 5 is basically a brain-dead sort of killing machine. So you've got a group of medical researchers who are in this military base who are trying to come up with a cure. To get the cure, they're going to have to get blood samples from people who haven't been infected and also those who are level 1 zombies. And so in order to do this, they assemble a team of a driver, a gunner, a doctor and a navigator. They're wearing helmets where the viewer can actually see through their eyes, and now they're going to venture out in an armoured bus in order to get to their target, but it's going to be very difficult because there are hordes of infected who are hell-bent on making these people their next meal. So whether or not they can actually get the cure and save the world is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Pandemic. This is a movie that is very disposable. It's a very fun film, but it's a very empty film. So if you go into it expecting something that's going to blow you away, it's going to be something different in the found footage genre, then you're going to be disappointed. It does have a novelty, and that novelty is actually looking through the eyes of these characters. And so that's something I enjoyed, but unfortunately this movie, I felt as though it came out a little bit too late for its own good, is because that novelty has been done before, and unfortunately it's been done better before. And so this movie, you do have that aspect where you can use these characters as a vessel, and that's why I think it was as fun as it was, is because the attacks from these zombies are very relentless, and they're actually quite scary in some parts. And so when you've got the whole idea of a first-person shooter in a video game is to actually put you in their shoes, and you're actually shooting the gun. And in this film, it combines the video game with that traditional element of found footage, and it actually puts you in the firing line. So you're not necessarily caring about these characters, but you're more a case of experiencing what they're going through and experiencing what it would be like going through a zombie apocalypse. And so I liked that aspect. I thought it was very brutal. There was a lot of action. It was very action-packed, and I thought the choreography was very well done. So it has some money behind it. So I thought the budget was used fairly well. You've got this very authentic looking desolate environment, which used to be this massively bustling city, but now it's basically empty. And so when you've got all of these zombies just pouring at the screen, I felt as though, okay, I'm flinching at the relentless violence that has been thrust upon the viewer. So you've got some very brutal violence. I thought some of the gore effects were quite well done, but it is shaky cam, so be careful of that, because if you're not a fan of found footage, this movie is not going to be for you. And I also like the idea of having the story told through different perspectives. So not only do you have the view from one character, but when they're talking to the other character, it switches to that character, so you're looking at the character that you used to be looking through. And so it does give you different perspectives, and so that was trying something a little bit different, and that's something, again, that I also appreciate. I thought the acting was fairly decent. Some pretty good actors in this film. I thought the script was non-existent, so the script really didn't help them, but what they had I thought was fairly likeable, the characters. And you've also got a little twist at the end that I thought showed the power of what this woman was actually going through. So I thought, okay, that was alright too. And so the ending does hit you on a fairly emotional level, but I thought that if the script was better, that emotional ending would have been a lot better. Unfortunately, however, that is basically where the positives stop. Now, as I said, this movie was made way too late. It was made after Hardcore Henry. Now, Hardcore Henry was a first-person video shooter, and it was done a lot better. You've got a fairly interesting story, you've got some really funny characters, and so you're laughing and you're marveling at the sheer brutality of the film. And so this Hardcore Henry wasn't actually the first that I'd been experienced as far as this first-person shooter aspect is concerned. In fact, Rec 2, which was the famous Rec series from Spain, that was a movie that was actually showing cameras from their helmets, and so it's a first-person shooter aspect. And unfortunately for Pandemic, those two other films had a lot more going for them. They had a lot more thought-provoking quality, and the stories were somewhat interesting, whereas in this movie the story is paper thin, is because you've seen a zombie film before. It's about people who are trying to find a cure, and people who are worried about whether or not they're infected or their friends are infected. So you've got a strong level of predictability to the story. And so I thought to myself, okay, the movie is not really banking on being a story that's going to hit you with a lot of twists. It's a movie banking on a novelty, and that novelty, because it's been done before, it becomes redundant. And so I thought to myself, okay, after it starts to wear off and you get some fight scenes, I started to think, alright, well, that's enough. I've kind of checking out a little bit, and because I had no inkling as to no care whatsoever for the characters, I just thought it was set piece after set piece. And because you can be you're using these characters as a vessel, it can become a little bit tiresome after a while, especially when you've got a very generic story and you know exactly how it's going to pan out. So that was the biggest problem with Pandemic. It's not as bad as a lot of people say, because it does have some very memorable set pieces, but but unfortunately it just doesn't prove enough creativity to make it a film to make you want to go out there and see as soon as possible. So overall, for Pandemic, definitely very disposable and a fun film for a group of friends on a Friday night, but nothing that's really going to set the bar at a new level. So I'm going to give this film 2 stars. Not terrible, but then again, not enough quality to make it a great film. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.